and welcome to the 42nd episode of the Select Characters Podcast. I'm Sam Yates, and after an intense procedure this week to replace my larynx with a fully functioning garbage truck, I am here to, make a podcast with my friends. I think we're all sounding perhaps a little bit off than we used to, so if you'll excuse us for any coughs or nose blowing or any sort of moisture-based kind of audio interruptions.
Blame the weather. Blame the weather.
The weather's been great.
The collective weather from all our climates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Let's see. I've got some people here, though. I've got Christopher Anderson.
Hey.
Hello. And Ryan Dildine.
Hey, how's it going?
And check this out. The 4 set, I also have Enrique Cancel. Everybody here, all together.
Wow.
Hey.
I've only read about that.
Only spoken of in hushed tones around campfires.
And it's finally happening. We're all here. We're all together. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. And it has been another excellent week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. Let's start with Ryan Dildine. What's up, man?
I've been pretty busy, so I just hopped back into Cobalt, which I got super addicted to this week for some reason. More addicted than I was previously, but I got super into Pug Slam, and I discovered I'm very bad at it.
It's tough. It's definitely tough.
It's hard, man, because I get it. Like, you grab the plug. Is it Pug or Plug?
It's plug. Yeah, it's like plug, an electrical plug.
Yeah. So you grab the plug and I'm like trying to throw it in, but there's people who like just buy sniper rifles, and anytime the plug goes up in the air, they just snipe it out of the air straight into the goal. So it's like, well, I suck at this.
Yeah, and if you want to get good momentum on that thing, you have to kind of roll and then throw it in the middle, which until you figure that out, it always ends up going straight up in the air or just very slowly into the ground. Yeah.
So I played it a good amount of that, and then I did some of the Team Strike, which I was better at, so I enjoyed that one a lot more. But I also started playing this mobile game. It's called Stack, and it's really simple. It's basically like you have these blocks that are sliding back and forth, and when it gets right over the stack, you press on your screen, and it stacks the next block. But whatever overhangs gets cut off and it falls, so your stack keeps getting smaller and smaller as it goes up. And so it gets really hard towards the end, and for some reason I got really addicted to that this week, and I played I must have played like 4 hours of that mobile game. So
wow, that is a lot for a mobile game.
Yeah, and it's so simple, so I don't know what that is. That's a weird brain thing. But
did you get a good stack? Did you get a good stack going?
I think let's see. I think my high score is like 45, which I'm assuming isn't very good.
It sounds like a good stack, though. Like, as an amount of things to stack, that seems like a high number.
Yeah, that's probably the most I've ever stacked of anything. So
in and out of the game.
There's a game called Burger that's like that, and it's just there's like half a cow, and a slice will fall off it into a frying pan, and then you have to flip it onto a burger, and just try to stack as many of those in a row as you can. It's like a one-touch kind of little game, and that one's pretty fun too.
I don't know if I want to be playing a game with like cows with leprosy.
Yeah, it's called Burger. You should check it out. It's fun.
Hey, you mentioned Cobalt. Did you play online? What's the server population like? Is it getting better?
4.
Not better, but not worse.
Oh,
so there was on a good hour, I guess, that I was playing. There'd be like 2 games of each mode, and then at a bad time, there's like 1 game going. I've never seen it where there were no games going though. So I guess it grew a tiny bit, but really there's not much of a change, which I was kind of disappointed in. But I hadn't played it for a week at that point, so I mean I'm kind of part of the problem.
So weird, because that game is published by Mojang of all people.
Yeah,
and it's doing
really,
well.
It's really fun, and it reminded. Have you guys ever played Soldat?
No.
Oh, Soldat is some like super old game. I only played it a little bit when I was in high school, but it's just another platformer deathmatch type of game. But Cobalt reminds me of like a super polished version of Soldat.
Didn't Mojang release Scrolls and not do too well?
Did that come out?
That is a good point. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
question.
like Mojang got into like this weird area where like their name is synonymous with Minecraft and that's what everybody knows. But I guess it's so popular to the point that anything else that they've come out with just is completely overshadowed and blacked out because there's no reason we shouldn't have heard about Cobalt, but
oh yeah, Scrolls came out a long time
yeah,
ago.
I mean, I can guarantee you though, if you talk to anybody about Cobalt, probably nobody's going to know that it's made by Mojang.
Oh yeah,
It's not. It's published by Mojang, right?
Yeah, I mean, but they're not going to know there's any kind of even affiliation with them.
Oh, right. Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know.
which is unfortunate.
The
It's
game,
really unfortunate.
the game is fun. It's weird that it didn't get any, almost any traction whatsoever.
It's a Oxeye Game Studio. That's who developed it,
Right.
and then Mojang and Microsoft are the publishers.
Well,
But
So
yeah, it kind of sucks because I think if that game had a lot bigger of a player base, it would be. I think it has potential to be an esport because it's just so fun to watch. Kind of in the same way that Super Smash Brothers. It's just that same kind of style.
right. It
I
reminds
guess.
me a lot of Towerfall.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like that fun, little chaotic.
I do really like Towerfall.
yeah. So I mean that's what I played this week. It wasn't a whole ton, but yeah, I just wish Cobalt had a bigger player base too.
Right.
Cool. Well, I mean, at least the people that are playing aren't leaving. That's something.
Yeah.
Let's cruise on over to Enrique. Let's find out what he's been playing. What you been playing?
Finishing up a little bit of Fire Emblem, and I picked up Super Hot. That's actually surprisingly fun. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It looks
Interested in
amazing.
Dude, the reason I liked it so much and that it kind of caught me off guard was because I think it's more puzzle than it is shooter, which is really neat. Because the whole gimmick with the game is that time freezes as long as you stand still, and then when you move, time moves with you. And it's really cool because you're fighting these enemies that are constantly spawning all over the place. They're shooting at you, they're appearing right behind you when you can't look, and it's really cool because you'll stop and you have to kind of assess the situation, and you can, I guess, all the bullets they shoot leave trails, so you can see where the trajectory is going to be. So you're always in these positions where you're stopping, you're analyzing the room, you're like, okay, I can pick this item up, throw it at that person, move a little bit to have the bullets advance this way, and then immediately grab their gun. It's actually really fun.
Yeah, it looks so flashy,
Yeah, it's trippy.
Really, really cool. I saw Super Bunny Hop's review of it,
Right.
and he said at the start that it's essentially an MLG compilation in a video game, but way more complex.
Well, the cool thing
The
that I
art
like
style.
about it is when you beat a level, you can actually replay it in real time, so you can see kind of how cool it looked without all the pauses.
Right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty fun, man. It feels like an action movie, so it's I'm having fun with it so far.
I played it way back when it was just a couple levels that they made for a game jam or something.
Right. Yeah, because I think that's how it started, and I think from what I've been hearing, that's one of the complaints that people have with it. I guess that because it was kind of a game jam title, they didn't really improve on it too much. Because I know the campaigns, I haven't really gotten too far on it, but it's only about 4 hours, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty straightforward. Just kind of go through, beat the game, and that's it. But I mean, it's got time trials. It's got an endless mode where you can just kind of keep playing yourself. You got a couple challenge modes where you can kind of beat the different the different levels at certain time intervals. So there's a lot to do with it, but I guess content wise, there's not a lot of diversity.
I don't think that there needs to be necessarily. What I played, I would be happy if they just put me in some new interesting scenarios. That's all I would really want. I don't want any crazy new mechanics or anything, and it sounds like that's what they did.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Now,
because
even that content is finite, which is a problem that a lot of players seem to be having with that game because there's no level editor as well, which is this is a game that seems ripe for a level editor, but it's not there. So the content is extremely finite.
Yeah, I think the biggest complaint I've seen that I can kind of agree with is that the game feels like a really good tech demo, like a proof of concept, and they haven't really done anything with it. But I mean, for what it is, though, it's still fun as hell. The time trials alone are actually pretty clever.
That
Yeah,
sounds
that's
cool.
really good.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play that. I think I will probably sometime this week.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty fun. I kind of do want to play the story, even though it's short, because I've heard it's actually really trippy. So it's narratively, it's supposed to be really good too. So for what it is,
Yeah, I've heard people liken it to Pony Island in the narrative because it's apparently very meta.
Oh yeah, I haven't played that one either, but I heard that was weird.
It's a nightmare, apparently.
Yeah, I love weird games. Yeah, but I mean, that's been pretty much it. And like I said, pretty fun. So I'd recommend people picking that one up.
All right, cool. So let's see who's left. Chris.
Yeah, that's me. I had a friend over from London the whole week last week, and he wanted to play Life is Strange. So we played through the entirety of Life is Strange in a day and a half, which was a bit much. I mean, at one point we were still making like teenage decisions at 3 a.m, which was a bit too much, I guess. But I took that opportunity to do some different things in that game, took different paths and stuff, and made different choices to see what the outcome would be, and if it was different from my first playing through. And some things did definitely change. Some larger things, some smaller things, and it was just great to replay that game again. I didn't really find it boring the second time around either. Because my short-term memory is really, really, really terrible, I didn't know the solution to most of the puzzles. So that took us quite some time to figure that out again. And it was a good time. I really did enjoy that.
What did your friend think overall?
He really liked it. Like, he wanted to know why I gave it a 9 when I reviewed it, so he wanted to see it for himself.
I mean, that's good, though.
Yeah. But he really did enjoy it, and he didn't really get the complaints that most people were having. Like, he recognized that all the complaints people were having about that game were really surface things, and if you played that game for longer than 10 minutes, you know that none of that was true.
Okay.
So, yeah, he really enjoyed it, which I'm glad with.
Did you get scared by the squirrels again?
Sorry?
Did you get scared by the squirrels again?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the big ones, right?
Yep, I'm pretty sure that never stops.
Yeah, really freaked out. Again. Let's see what else. I bought the Snowfall expansion for Cities Skylines.
Do you think that's worth it?
No.
Oh no.
I don't see why this wasn't a free update, because essentially all it does is add trams to the game, and I think 3 maps that are completely covered in snow that have that new snow mechanic where you need to keep the roads cleared of snow and everything. But I don't see why that wasn't just a free update.
You know,
it's not expensive to begin with. It's just $12.99, I think. But still, though.
You know what really bothered me about that snow mechanic?
What?
That it's persistent. It's not like you get it adds like a season through the game. It's literally 3 maps that have snow 24/7, and that's it.
Yeah. Although snowstorms are dynamic, so your roads won't freeze up until it actually snows and starts to freeze. But yeah, it just looks like there's snow all day, every year, which is a bit of a mischance, really, because I was led to believe, and this has more to do with me than with Colossal Order, that there was going to be seasons there. It's just not the case. All it adds is rain and fog and snowfall on the snow maps and trams and, winter-themed ploppables and stuff like that. Nothing too spectacular, and maybe better priced at around $10 instead of $13.
That's a real bummer. I've always been interested in real life about how cities do that, because is it going to snow this winter? Is it not? How many trucks do we need? How much salt? What patterns do we run? Do we need to borrow trucks from another state? It seems like there's a lot of
factor into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting strategy stuff there to just not capitalize on.
If they had done it like a seasons thing where the snow, like the variance of snow would actually change depending on the area, I mean, I think it could have gotten a lot more in depth. But like I said, it's 3 maps that have it year round, so there's not really any kind of planning work that goes into it. It's just a matter of like, okay, snowfall, time to bring out all the trucks and trams and go.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't really think about before I bought it was snow during the day in the blistering sun isn't really great to look at. So I had a form of digital snow blindness while I was building my town. Yeah. But it does look incredible at night, though. I'll give it that. And with the added fog and rain, it looks scenic. Really, really cool. But not worth the price of admission. So I'd wait until it goes on sale in the next Steam sale or something like that.
It's like a $2 buy or something.
Yeah, or even $5 would be good. Or like I said before, 10 would be a perfect price for that as well, because it adds just enough for that. I think the $3 disparity is just a bit too much, really.
I can see it.
But then again, After Dark didn't really add all that much either.
Yeah, but After Dark was free.
No, it wasn't.
I thought it was.
No, it wasn't.
Ooh.
Every new update adds in stuff that is also in the expansion, because that is just the way that Colossal Order is doing things and Paradox Interactive are doing things. But some features are locked behind a paywall, which has been the case with After Dark, and it's the case with Snowfall as well, and it will probably be the case with the ones after that. I'm telling you this, though, if they call the next one City Skylines and Falling Leaves, I will flip a table.
Buy the whole set.
Yeah, right? just going to release a season per thing.
Okay.
But I think they are working on trying to get seasons in the game, like full stop. But apparently the technology is not there yet.
When you say trams, what is that?
You know what trams are?
Subway, right?
No,
Well,
no,
the
no,
game
no.
had
That's
subways.
that's Metro. Trams are the above ground train cars that go through the inner city.
Oh, a trolley.
Yeah, I think so. Los Angeles has it.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about now. I got you.
Those are trams. But are they not called trams in American English?
I think they are. I've just never lived in a city with decent public transportation.
Yeah. It's those things you see in Full House.
That's okay. That's fine as a point of reference. Yes, that's good.
I thought that was topical, so.
That's fine. I mean, it kind of is now. You got lucky this time. Because I know you would have done that 2 weeks ago, too.
Touche.
I played the first episode of The Walking Dead Michonne today. Started
nice.
and finished it.
Oh, is that the new Telltale one?
Yeah, it's a mini series, so it's not 5 or 6 episodes. It's just 3, and they center around Michonne, which you probably know if you watch the TV show. She's in that, or if you read the comics, because she's in that as well.
Yeah,
And
she's a super badass in the comic book.
She is.
she's a super badass in the game as well, man. She's really, really good with a machete, and also suffers from PTSD, which is not a great combination when you think about it. It's a Telltale game. If you've played Tales from the Borderlands, The Walking Dead Season 1, Season 2, 500 Days, The Wolf Among Us, you know how this plays. You walk around, you interact with objects, you talk to other people as a story unfolds, and you have very little influence of where you're actually going to go outside of some choices where you can decide who dies and who lives, stuff like that. It's Telltale through and through. They have not innovated or tweaked their formula, and they don't really have to, really, because it works well enough. And the main focus, as always, is the story, and it's quite good. It's compelling enough to make me wonder what's going to happen in the next episodes. But there's a bit of a problem with using an established character in an adaptation, in a video game adaptation. You know that she's going to survive, so every dangerous situation she gets herself into
Right.
is going to be ultimately without much of a consequence, because she has to survive through it, because she's a main character in the comics and in the TV show. So it doesn't really feel very dangerous when you're being attacked by a bunch of walkers, because you know that you're going to survive anyway. So that's a bit of a shame. And they also didn't get the actress from the TV show to voice her in the game. They actually got Pussy from Orange is the New Black to voice her.
Yeah.
Okay.
She does a really good job though. So I don't really miss the original actress, but I do get the feeling that she's been instructed to sort of imitate the actress from the TV show, because they do sound quite similar at times.
Do they share the same universe? The TV show and the games and the comic? I seem to remember there's some discrepancies.
Comic
at
and
least
the
between...
TV show are different. They're taking a lot of creative liberties with it, which is fine, because from a reader standpoint, it keeps you guessing as well, because you know they're going to divert. But
and a lot of the stuff in the comic that could not be on TV.
Yeah, but I do remember though that the games are actually in universe with the TV show, because I remember in the first Walking Dead, you do run into Herschel, you do run into Glenn, and they make references to the events from the TV show.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you're right. You're absolutely right. There's no doubt about if you're in a dangerous situation, what's going to happen then.
Yeah, but this is way before the TV show and the comics. Well, at least I get the feeling that it's way before, because she doesn't really walk around with the 2 other zombies on the leash, and she doesn't have dreadlocks yet. I don't read the comics, so I don't know if she gets dreadlocks at some point, or she always has dreads in the comics, but she doesn't have them in the video game. So
do you think it's
probably way before?
Like the purpose is like a character exploration, or do you think that it's just to tell another story, just to make another game? Is it like meaningful? Does it add something to the overall universe?
Oh, it gives you insight in who Michonne is as a character, and and they show a bit of her origins. They show how she's dealing with this is not a spoiler, by the way, as far as I'm aware, but it shows how she's dealing with the death of her 2 kids that she lost in due to some reason after the zombie apocalypse started. So it gives you a bit more insight into one of the coolest characters in that universe.
That's fair. Are you going to keep up with it, you think?
I have to. I have to write reviews for it, but it's not going to be a problem because I am enjoying this. But it does not have the emotional intensity or the stakes of The Walking Dead season 1. I mean, there's no Lee, there's no Clementine there, and those two were arguably the main pull for that series. But we'll see. We'll see.
Especially the second game, I think.
The second season, in my opinion, wasn't as great as the first one, really.
No, I agree with that. But one of the reasons I think people played was because you got to be Clementine.
Yeah, that is definitely true. But yeah, I'll stick with it and see where it ends up because I'm compelled, and that goes beyond being professionally obligated to be compelled.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we'll take it as like a halfway positive, encouraging until the whole thing, right?
I gave it a 7, which is still good.
7 is good. 7 is solid.
Good.
All right. Anything else before I just cut you off again?
No. That was it. Yeah. You may go.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm actually glad that you had another thing because I don't have very much. The only game I played this week was Factorio because apparently it's out on Steam now, which is cool. And I logged into their website. I bought that game 2 or 3 years ago. So thank goodness for LastPass because I still had my password. I popped in, grabbed the Steam key, downloaded it, saw where that game's at now, and it's pretty cool. It's a top-down, very assembly-based game, so you're building conveyor belts, and it's like a crafting game, but you're trying to automate as much of the crafting as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you build conveyor belts and little swingy arms that pick things up and put them into stoves and ovens that assemble stuff. I think ultimately you're trying to defend your base from these bug creatures that come every so often.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun from the aspect of putting together a machine and then looking at it and going, yeah, that's cool, like just watching it run. But the actual process of that feels maybe a little bit too much like work, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I'm not sure if watching it run is fun enough to account for the building aspect of it. But if I guess at this particular time I was sort of assembly minded, so it was a lot of fun. And looking at like when you build your turrets in the front and you have a mining thing pulling steel out of the ground, going into something, turning it into steel plates, and then conveyor belts taking that to another thing, making bullets, and then ramping a conveyor belt by your turrets and feeding them with bullets so that they're basically never going to stop shooting and it's all automated. Mm-hmm. It feels pretty cool. It looks awesome.
I saw an animated GIF that you posted on the Slack and it looks fun.
Yeah, it is. But like I said, the actual building of that stuff is sort of maybe a little bit too much like work, but there's an infinite amount, not an infinite amount, but there's so much content in that game as far as things you can build and, tech trees and research, and it's almost overwhelming. And it's funny to see the early access reviews because people are like, wow, there's a lot of stuff here for an early access game, which is funny because it's been in development for like 3 or 4 years at this point.
Wait, and there's still more stuff to come?
Yeah, they're not done by a long shot.
Holy shit.
I think there's only maybe 3 main scenarios right now, but you won't run out of stuff to build and interesting ideas and tech trees and stuff. I think I might get a little more into it, but probably not too much. It was good to check in and see, all right, this is still pretty cool, but I do think I want to wait and see whatever their end product is.
The way you describe it kind of reminds me of Besieged, where like you can get really creative and build some really amazing contraptions, but the know-how and the effort to get to that a lot of times outweighs the actual enjoyment you get when you finish.
Oh god, man, that game. I'm not creative enough for that, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, this is there's a less creativity here as much as it is programmable efficiency.
Okay.
Right.
And like at the end, it does feel good to watch everything be automated. That feels super cool. I don't know. I'm still on the fence, I guess, about that.
That's weird because I find that games like that can either go one or two ways. Where successfully, they make you feel smart because you do put something together and you're amazed by it. But there's also those games that make you feel stupid because you can only put together like the most bare bone contraption, and then when you look at other people, you're like, God damn it.
This is probably
that's me with Besiege.
Yeah, could very easily land in that camp. When I started the main campaign and they sort of start you out with a little starter base that they've already assembled, I was just like, welp, that's better than I can do. Their most basic starter base was like almost beyond my imagination. They were doing that thing where you can use both sides of the conveyor belt instead of just one.
You're
I
like,
was just
God
like,
damn.
well, yeah, maybe I'm not quite there yet, but I guess in theory I could eventually get there. And one other funny thing is when the guy runs, he does high knees the whole time.
Oh, God.
So that's almost not to be missed.
That's good, though. We need more games that are humbling.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, overall, I think it's going somewhere. It should be fun on down the road. But yeah, that about wraps up my week.
So you're officially done with XCOM 2?
I think so. Until we get some
Yeah.
overhaul mods, some interesting mods, some patches, new content and stuff. I think I'm probably done for a while.
Right. All right.
It's just there's so much. There's some stuff that needs to be. I'm not upset that I played it when I did, because I did like being a part of the initial rush of people figuring out what this thing's all about and what's going on. It was fun to be a part of that excitement because I haven't been in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, you know, reading the forums, reading the Reddit, everybody else coming to this game for the first time, being a part of that zeitgeist was pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not something I regret, but I think I will play it again later. That game's got a ton of potential. Just need the right people to get their hands on it.
Yeah. It needs something to like maintain it, like they did with Long War.
Yeah, I think that'd be something very similar to that, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Aren't they working with the guys who made the Lone War mod, though?
They are, but they haven't had time to really do their whole thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
They released 3 little mods that kind of augment the campaign on release day, which was cool. And I imagine they do have something planned in the future, but I also think as tight as Long War was and as well balanced and difficult in the right way, I imagine that stuff takes some time. So yeah, I eagerly await something like that. Something just, and fix the performance, quality of life stuff just in general. I'm done with it for right now. I've gotten all the XCOM I need for the foreseeable future, but I also know something's coming later. So
if you want to know more of Sam's thoughts, we have a review on the YouTube channel right now where you can listen to him muse about the game as he's playing it.
Oh yeah,
That
that's
was
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did do that. What I wanted to say in that review that I didn't get a chance to is that it was the droopy dog simulator that Houdini would have loved. But
Wait, what?
yeah, that was the line I wanted to say, because you know how the wolf takes Droopy Dog and he puts him in a straitjacket, then he puts him in chains, and he puts him in a safe, then he throws him in the ocean?
Yeah.
That's what XCOM 2 is like. It's like,
It's not a rigging endorsement.
it's because it's like being inside all that stuff and then being Houdini and breaking out of the straitjacket, feeling that temporary moment of freedom before you realize, crap, now I have to get out of the chains. And then getting out of the chains, feeling awesome about that moment of freedom, realizing now you have to get out of the safe. That's almost exactly, to me, what XCOM 2 is like.
Still not a ringing endorsement.
No, that's a good thing, though. It's a good thing. It's all about constraints and then also breaking them. I like it. Overall, with some tuning, it's going to be great. Let's see. That's it for me. You guys want to cruise on and talk about a topic or two?
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to talk a little bit about early access games and the reviews that go with them. I was kind of thinking about how we tend to look at early access games, and a thing you hear a lot about is just people saying it's alpha or it's beta when any kind of criticisms pop up for the game. And that got me thinking about how should we actually go about, putting out a review for these alphas? Because, I mean, there's still, especially nowadays with paid alphas and paid access and early access, there are things that we're paying money for. So I think that a review system does need to come out so, people know what they're getting into. But at the same time, we can't really apply the same kind of chain that we have for full release games because these are work in progress. So I was kind of thinking what you guys' opinions are on that.
I'd like to say something I said on this very podcast again, and that is the moment you are accepting payment from consumers, you should be as open to criticism as you would be when you release a full retail game, essentially. And I'm not really, I hope you guys can convince me, but I don't really think that there is a different system needed. If you're looking at an incomplete game, you judge that on the features that are there at the moment, because the promise of new features won't make the game now any better.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you include that in a review? Because the promise of something, like everything has potential. Everything, literally everything. but not everything lives up to that full potential. So mentioning or taking into account features that may or may not be there might sway your opinion of a game towards something more positive or negative. So I don't really think that those sort of games should be reviewed at all.
Yeah, I agree.
That's true. But I mean, I think from a reviewer standpoint too, though, it also, with early access games, you have that leniency because there is still that potential like, oh, this is going to be added in later, or like, oh, hey, I really hope they flesh this out. Versus a complete game that comes out, you don't see anybody, playing Call of Duty 3 saying, it'd be really great if they added this. So here's hoping they'll patch it. It's just once the game is said and done, that's what you get. That's the finished product. So it's easier for you to look at it as a complete piece versus, I guess, think of it as a meal where you're just kind of getting shown the ingredients for it, and you can make a guess saying, oh yeah, this will work really well, or you can just say, oh well, these things suck by themselves right now. But even though that's not really indicative of what the final product may be.
Yeah, but if a review should be there to help your purchase decision, right?
Right.
And if you're just holding pies in the sky in front of people's faces, like, this is what it is now, but all this other great stuff might be coming later. I mean, that is a bit disingenuous towards the consumer as well.
Yes.
Because you're essentially recommending or not recommending a product based on what it could be instead of what it is now. There's only one chance to make a first impression, and that counts. I mean, look at the reputation that, for instance, DayZ has and will always have because of how broken it is now or how broken it has been in the past, right?
Yeah, and I think that's... I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's kind of where my... I don't like reviewing pre-release games. I don't think that's a practice that should be done, and it's because if you say I review DayZ, okay, so 0.60 is coming out in the coming days, the next patch. So if I review that patch, by the time 0.61 is out, my review is totally obsolete, and it's bordering on misinformation based on what comes out in the next patch.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's fair to review something until it's finished. I mean, I think the closest thing I'd be comfortable to... the closest thing I could get to be comfortable is reviewing, like, say, DayZ or H1Z1 or Rust or whatever. I'd be okay with reviewing them on a patch-by-patch basis.
Right.
If some game comes out with a really crappy patch, just say, hey, don't play it right now. Like, it's bad right now. But I don't think you can judge those promises as a good thing or a bad thing until the game's, until the fat lady sings. So I think that's where I kind of stand on it. I don't really like to review alpha games or pre-release games on deadlines because I know that in game development, things happen, and deadlines don't get met or roadmaps don't get met or whatever. But yeah, I think for me, it just comes down to a patch by patch basis and what they're promising in that patch, and if that thing is in that patch, and if it's not, then you go from there.
Well, you get a weird combination of what the present and the future. And if the purpose of a review is to inform a consumer, if you don't write anything, then you're not informing anybody. But there are people who are looking at the early access game or the beta game and thinking about buying it right now.
Right.
And they need some sort of resource to tell them, should I buy this right now? So obviously, you slap the version number on it. You say, this is what it is at this exact second. And like Chris said, that's true. You can't really gamble with the probability of what they will change, what they won't change, because none of that stuff is guaranteed. Yeah. But at the same time, like, the forecasting of it is part of that purchasing decision. The person who buys it doesn't only want whatever the early access is right now. They also want whatever it could potentially be. So there's some amount of gambling in there on the consumer side. I'm going to buy this. I hope that it turns out this way. Mm-hmm. And if I'm making that purchasing decision, then when I read a review from that perspective, I also want to know a little bit about what that potential is, where it could potentially end up. And maybe it's just the way they frame it that's bad, saying, I guess they could fix this, maybe, probably not. We want a little inside information. We want to have an idea of which way the compass needle is pointing. Mm-hmm. But something like that has to be in there more than just a caveat that says, this is the version, it's in beta, this is what it is at this exact second, because so much of the future is wrapped up in all sides of it.
I mean, and expanding on that a bit, because I'm not just looking at it in regards to whether or not, the review should tell me whether or not I should buy it. I'm also looking in regards to reviewing it as the quality of the object, because when you have alphas, you run into this problem where I guess the quality is kind of put into question because what the community might necessarily want you to focus on isn't what the developer sees as a priority.
Yeah.
Case in point, DayZ. DayZ, I think when it first started, they went through a phase where they completely removed zombies because they wanted to fix the AI pathing. And during that time, you had a lot of people complaining, like, oh, this game sucks, there's nothing to do, it's boring, there's no danger, this game is awful. And from the developer standpoint, says, well, that's all well and good, sorry you feel that way, but we're not going to put the zombies in because we need to fix their pathing and we need to make sure that they're not clipping through environments and things like that. So,
which I still do, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily, but not to the degree that we're used to. So it kind of brings up this argument where you have a group of people, questioning the quality of the product, where at the same time the developer saying, "Hey, I understand that, but this is an intentional choice by us." So I don't think it's fairness.
Yeah, but
no, go ahead.
Whose fault is it that they are being judged on features that are not there? I mean, they opened the floodgates to people there. They've asked money from people in order for them to access that content. Whose fault is it that they are not now getting judged on features that are not there? Surely the developer. And they don't want to be reviewed until their product is finished. So what purpose would a review have? And for this sort of thing, we have previews, don't we?
Yeah, like impression pieces and previews.
Yeah, like don't judge something until it's absolutely done. But on the other hand, you open your game up to criticism. Yeah, it's a tough one. But
well, I think
you're specifically asking about a system for reviewing early access games and alpha games. But I don't think that is something that you would necessarily need, nor is that something that anyone would want. Because it's never fair, not towards the consumers and not towards the developers. Because the consumers might be getting informed on features that are there now, might get taken away, or features that might be coming or might never be coming. And the developers are being judged on the state of the game in the development process. That's not fair to anybody involved.
Yeah, and I think to make that a balance, to get the consumer and the developer on the same page, you would have to have every consumer in on every meeting that the developers had, and they could see everything that's going on. But when you are somewhat behind closed doors, because I know, a lot of these games with pre-release stuff, they give you information, but you still feel like you're kind of kept under the table a little bit. So I don't know. It's not. I guess it's not possible for the developers and the consumer to be on the perfect same page, and that will only lead to problems. That'll only lead to miscommunication between the two, which will inevitably piss everybody off.
Yeah, it's. I guess.
Which,
when I
sorry,
no, it's
even
just,
the go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, even the games that I would say like DayZ is one of the, even though it has like this kind of reputation, it's one of the better received alphas out there. I mean, compared to something like H1Z1, which just totally blew up and now people kind of hate it.
Right.
And so if that's kind of the best case scenario you're looking for, it's just a bad situation for everybody involved, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's almost no winning. And I guess the reason I even brought up this whole question of the review process with it is because you get into that awkward argument of like, how do you go about objectively criticizing or making points against like early access and review games when they're not finished yet. Like it's a case in point. I feel like a lot of these games, they kind of go through the cycle where you start off with an established community, new players get into it, and they start looking at things that they don't like, that they're incomplete, and they'll complain about it, rightfully so. Hey, these bugs are happening. Hey, this feels incomplete. Hey, this, I'm not really pleased with this feature. But you have like the majority of the people saying, oh, well, it's just alpha, or like, oh, well, it's just beta, like stop being a baby about it. And it goes through the cycle where eventually it'll kind of shift gears where as time goes on, you'll see more and more people getting into the camp of complaining, saying, well, you can't use it's just alpha as an excuse. And eventually that'll outweigh the people that are defending the game. And then you get up to this climax where it'll reverse again. And then you start seeing people start supporting it. Well, you need to, lay back. It's still, it's still being worked on. So that's kind of why I got into that whole thought process of, well, is there even really a way to objectively criticize or even just review like the quality of those games that are still in progress?
No, because it will just never be fair.
But it has to be done, though.
It's done by the people actually playing the game, aren't they?
Isn't that what a reviewer is?
It is sort of different. Like, reviewer has the connotation of a professional writing about games and looking at games for a publication or anything like that. What I'm talking about is the people playing the actual game are continuously providing the developer with feedback, which in its own way is a critique.
That's true. But the way I see it is you bring your game to early access because you need to make money, or maybe marketing, but for the purpose of my argument, let's say you need to make money, which means that you need to sell copies, which means that the people going to the game to buy it, to give you revenue, generally speaking, are going to want some kind of information first. And where do they turn for that information? They go to reviews. So it seems like everything is in a cycle, everything feeds off each other, which makes reviews necessary. And that would be information that I would want from a trusted source or a tastemaker instead of, a community kind of person who just kind of says what's going on. Maybe their opinion is not objective because they are personally invested in the game.
Yeah, but think of the logistics involved in making the press aware of every little thing that goes on in development, so they can update their review of that game, so it's always on the latest version. Just think of the logistics involved in that. Think of the amount of publications and trusted publications there are, and how much time it would cost to have a direct line with each and single one of them in order for them to update the reviews.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
It can't be done. It can't be done.
And I'm not saying that is, I'm not saying our current methodology is the best way to go about reviewing early access games, but I think that we've reached that methodology based simply on that exact process you're talking about. You start blending in all of the forecasting into your review, saying this is what it could be, this is what might be changed in the future, et cetera, to jump out of that loop so that you don't have to constantly update the same review, right? You just want to go kind of big picture. This is generally what it is. This is what you might expect to see. This is something that they might change. And that methodology is flawed, but I don't know exactly what you would do to go about it differently, but I know that there needs to be some sort of review process in there.
No, I don't think so. I think you should update your readership on every new update coming to the game, which is what TechRaptor does, and I think that Gamer Assault Weekly does that as well, don't they, Enrique?
Yeah, from time to time they do.
But you just told me that's not possible, though, right?
Well, there's a difference in updating your readership on a new feature coming to that game and going back to review time and time again.
Yeah, review
until it's actually
finale.
finished. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think we're starting to get to that weird point where we're arguing semantics, where we're talking about reviews versus impression pieces versus, what have you. But, I mean, like, the overall argument, though, because I know I've seen publications that do kind of like a look back where they'll look at an early access game, and then a few months down the line, they'll check it back out. And I know I've personally gotten a couple of companies that I worked with where they'll send you updates saying, like, hey guys, we have the newest version of this game coming out. These are some of the things that we've updated. And logistically, I don't think that it's too difficult to keep them in the know, but I think that a lot of the times those updates and new versions that we get, the changes are so minimal and minuscule that they're not really worth talking about in a way. Because I remember, like, there was, I don't want to throw their name out, but there was a company we were working with that, they had a game idea. I reviewed like the alpha when it first came out. And then they send us emails every few months saying, hey guys, check out the new version of the game, because they wanted more coverage, which was cool. But at the same time, it gets really hard to write a new impression piece every single time when you realize that, okay, this time they balanced out some of the enemy health and added more art assets. Or, hey, this time we have better lighting and Linux support.
Yeah, it's not exactly a highlight reel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird because it is possible, but at the same time, it's not really realistic to do because, like I said, a lot of those changes are really minuscule.
Yeah, I think that we should just leave a review until there's actually something to review. And until then, all criticism is fair game, but it mostly has to come from the community, the people actively engaging in the development of the game, for better or for worse.
I don't know.
Do you think we've seen enough early access titles that we could do something like, this is what the game is now. This is what the developer says the game will be at the finish line.
Yeah, but that's a preview.
And then
those exist for those reasons.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, semantically, not like getting away from that.
Yeah.
Just saying, providing
Sorry.
criticism, right? Writing a critical piece about an early access game. This is where it is now. This is the finish line. Here's the factors that we've seen, because we have years of early access data up to this point, and we assume that how likely they are to reach their end goal. Obviously, there's always outliers. There's always things that come along that fall outside of the probability. But you could say, all right, the developers update this often. The developers are this active on their forums. They are this communicative with their people. They are releasing patches that have this amount of change every so often, and sort of say, this could work, or this is something that is a risky investment, or something like that, to fill in the middle gap without just saying this is what they hope to do. Like, also dig in a little bit and evaluate their chances of reaching that.
I think it's doable, but it takes a little bit more effort on the behalf of whatever publication is like doing the reviewing on it, or the impression, whatever we want to call it. Because I mean, and okay, Superhot is a perfect example of this, because I remember it was probably like a year or so ago where the first kind of news of it came out, and it made a really big splash. And honestly, I didn't even hear that it came out or any other news until I saw a thread on it on Reddit. I was like, Superhot's out today. I was like, oh, what the hell? Completely forgot about this title. And I kind of realized that it takes a lot of effort for publications to go back and keep those games updated, saying, hey, guys, you're looking back at this. And they only really do it when it fits into that weird cycle of what does the public want to read versus what do we want to cover to raise viewership and things like that.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. It does a lot of, not, I don't want to say most of it, but I think a significant amount of the responsibility falls on that person who's writing about that game, because as somebody talking about something that's still a work in progress, you have to tell the consumer this is still a work in progress, and they can do with what they want with that information. They can do as little or as much research as they want. But yeah, I think it's a really good point. Like it's on that person to make sure that the person reading knows exactly what kind of context they're going into, because I think when people read about these games, they think it's a lot more finished and a lot more polished than they think it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And then the other people who are in it for that process, they're looking at it through a totally different lens.
That's true.
And they're saying, okay, cool. Like, I want to be a part of this process. And the other guy's saying, cool, I want to jump in like as this thing's wrapping up so I can be like, right, one of those first people to play.
Right.
And it's just a mess.
I mean, and then you also have the impatient people that just, like you said, there's that mentality that the review kind of implies some kind of finality to it. And you'll see a review in an early access game and they'll say, wow, that looks cool. I want to play that right now. And they don't really understand what the aspect of a early access game really entails.
Or even at its most basic, it's cheaper right now in
true.
Early access. When they finish it, the price is going to go up. I need somewhere to turn so that I know exactly what kind of gamble that is. How much of a risk am I taking on?
I do think that we can all agree, though, that when it comes to that kind of thing, we should definitely steer clear of like the numerical reviews. And
yes,
just in general, because I think that definitely implies some kind of a finality or just steal of quality of approval or something, that by having a concrete like number review that's already kind of hitting the nail in the proverbial coffin, as it were, versus just having like a quick, like 2-3 page impression piece or like a preview saying, hey, this is what we checked out. These are some of the features that we have right now.
So games always have us fight the dragon or fight the tornado to save the world / the universe / this dimension / this astral plane. You see that in an awful lot of games, that we're always working towards saving, well, the biggest thing imaginable. Think, for instance, Mass Effect has us save our galaxy from the Reapers, or games like Life is Strange that have us save the world from a giant tornado. But my question is that always needed to create a satisfying game? Because I don't necessarily think that we need to do that. A good example that was given right before we started recording this was Firewatch, a game that is fully rooted in reality. There's a mystery, and in the end, like, people were pretty disappointed with the ending because it wasn't as grand as people hoped it would be, because there's a mystery in that game that sort of seems to build up to something grand. But it turns out that nothing was really going on in the end, which is, well, a great parallel to life, really, because a lot of things in real life are not what they seem, or are not as dramatic as they might seem to us when the situation presents itself. So I want to know, do we really, really need that?
I don't think we do, but I also think that it takes a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of nuance to bring it down to a less of a grand scale. It has to be a lot more about human drama.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I think specifically with Firewatch, the fact that people were upset with that ending goes to show just how much we've become reliant on these giant, phenomenal, super twisty, oh my God, I can't believe it really happened that way sort of endings. That something that was actually very grounded almost left a bad taste in our mouths.
Yeah, almost. Because it didn't really do that for me. I found the ending to Firewatch pretty satisfying, actually.
Me too, and exactly for those reasons, because it was the opposite of almost every video game ending I've been through recently.
Yeah, exactly. Like the antithesis, I think it's called, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I don't know if maybe it's just because it's very easy to tell the hero's journey. It's very point for point as far as how you want to lay it out in a very kind of Joseph Campbell kind of style. That story makes sense. That's ingrained in us at a deeper level, almost more than we can even reach. So
we always aspire to be more, or at the end of our journey, be something that is far greater than what we were when we started on the journey.
And it's a perfect fit for video games. And
the easiest way to make somebody feel like what they're doing matters is say, hey, like the fate of everything you know rests on you doing this thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, after a while, like it's dull.
Yeah, because people are complaining about that more and more lately. Yeah. Like we don't always want to save the world. Sometimes we just want to save the girl or the man or our house or, well, even our lives, which is sometimes just enough.
Right. You become desensitized to high stakes after a certain point.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think you're seeing a lot of the opposite starting to take place. You're starting to see more emotional investment. You're starting to see things that are incredibly impactful without being galaxy scale and without being the fate of the entire world. Just you're starting to see how just the act of somebody's day-to-day life can be huge if it's the right toned. Like if it lines up with what you are worried about or the things in your head that you were already thinking.
Yeah.
Not to go back to Firewatch again, but the beginning of that game was devastating to me just because in real life terrifies me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that could happen to any of us, which makes it all the more scary and makes the motivation for Henry to go out into the wilds that much more believable, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But
the power of that game would have been diminished somewhat if Henry went out to the wilds and then saved the entire forest from burning to the ground. Because,
Mm-hmm. And
like you know what I mean, right?
Oh, I absolutely do. And those things, those very nuanced kind of human drama things, are definitely not what video games have been. And there's almost a little bit of pushback at these. You know, people bring out these things and say, okay, this is a good story, but is it a good video game story? Are those things the same? And maybe we're starting to see that, you know, there's a little more room there for those human experience stories than we thought there was.
Yeah. I am thinking about some of the games in recent memory that I've played, and quite a few of them don't revolve around saving the world. One of them is The Walking Dead, which is all about making sure that your ward makes it through to the end. And Life is Strange, which is all about rebuilding a relationship with a long-lost friend. Both games have more of an impact on me than Mass Effect, for instance, had, which has you save or destroy everything at the end of the game.
Yeah, well, I think that's because, I mean, at first glance, saving the world, that seems like of all importance. But in reality, when you really think about it, do you care about the world as a whole more, or do you care about your direct relationships with people around you?
Always the latter.
Yeah, so I think that's why we're seeing that come up in video games, because that's what becomes the more involving narrative. And I guess we didn't have that at the beginning because saving the world is a tried and true. You can't really go wrong with it. Like, it may not be the most exciting thing since we've seen it so many times before, but if there's a game and you're presented with a task to save the world, no one's going to say that's a bad task. They may say that's a tried and tired task, but they're not. I don't think anyone's going to say, oh, that's not realistic. Like, well, not realistic, but that's not a. I guess going to say it's not an involving task, just because it's almost a staple at this point. And it's, in my mind, it's easier. It's easier just to say you got to save the world rather than craft these relationships through storytelling.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. In real life, the smaller, more interpersonal things are always the things that keep us going or hamper us the most. I mean, we're less afraid of the threat of global nuclear war than we are of someone we love dying, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I like that games are reflecting that more and more, that we're more interested in what happens to the people right next to us than what happens to the world at large.
But if you look at sort of the progression of your typical video game where you have and you have the big bad guy and then you gradually get stronger, overcome the big bad guy, it fits in with the progression of a video game to gradually get more skillful, to gradually get better items, and then eventually meet a final challenge. The world-ending giant big boss thing is like such a natural fit for that it seems like in order to get those tinier, more personal stories, the format has to be changed.
Not necessarily. Not always. Consider The Witcher 3, a game that is so embroiled, I guess, in interpersonal drama that sometimes you almost forget what you're working towards, which in the end turns out to be saving the world. But I'm not sure where I'm going with this actually, but it's the interpersonal relationships that make the game and not the giant looming threat.
Mm-hmm. That's a good example. I didn't play that one out to the finish, so it's interesting to see that it actually takes parts from both concepts.
Oh, you really should finish that game, man. I will continue on badgering you until you do.
But what would fill that gap, I wonder, is the thing. It's just, the problem is I look at those two things on their face and they're such a natural fit, but there also seems to have been a constant escalation. In Mario, you just want to rescue the princess, and then in, I don't know, some other game, you want to save the planet, and then you want to save the universe, and then you want to save the galaxy, and then you want to save all the different multiple universes. That can't just escalate forever, right?
Save the multiverse.
Right.
God, can you imagine how complicated that game must be?
That would be a bad game.
Well, that's Mortal Kombat, I guess, in a way. No, that's just Earth. That's the example I should have used for Earth. It was Mortal Kombat. But it's just such a natural fit. I guess that's what I'm saying. And I don't mind it. It's just that maybe you should have another couple of notes in there. Find a way to add some variety. Understand that it's almost not necessarily about the goal, really. It's about the progression.
So yeah, it's always about the journey, not the destination. One of the most poignant examples I can think of now might actually surprise you, but that's DayZ. There is no grander story. Your story starts after the world has gone to shit. There is no escaping it. The only way out is death, and that in and of itself is inevitable, which makes the journey towards that inevitable end all that more interesting.
Yeah.
Why don't more games have that?
I think, now that you mention that, I think DayZ introduces, and this may not be specific to DayZ, but that's the game I have the most experience with. So you're put in this situation where you have very little context as to what's going on. And I think they want it that way. The developers have said, they don't want a story to be released or a backstory. So the people you meet in the game as you're going towards that end goal, which you all know is death eventually, the people that you meet, you end up growing connections with those guys, even if you only run with them for like 20 minutes or something. And when they die, you feel like you've lost a friend because you're probably never going to see that person again unless you run into them on the same server.
Because there's finality there.
Yeah, so it's very interesting that even when there's no point in saving the world because it's all kind of lost to chaos, that it's still those little interpersonal things, even with someone you don't really know or have a connection to, that are the motivating factor to play that game.
Do you think that it's counter to, or maybe this is just something I feel, but there's an appeal to starting out as the scrawny guy, the level 1,
yes,
the farmer's son, and then, gradually gaining in power. I feel like there's a lot of appeal there.
Well, yeah, it's overcoming an obstacle that your character previously could not. And every step you take brings you closer to overcoming the obstacles, which is empowering, which is why it's so appealing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the end goal doesn't matter as much. Maybe that's to rehash a previous point, but that's the part about these stories that feel great to me. And I don't know if you don't set the finish line far enough away to like the world ending point, maybe there's not enough room in the middle to, maybe flush out that entire thing, cross the threshold and communicate with the goddess and then eventually return home and find out the power was inside yourself all along or whatever. Maybe bringing it too far close doesn't give you enough room to set that whole stage. But I'm not sure about that. Like, is rescuing a village as cool as saving the world?
I think it's cooler if the game is crafted to make you care enough about that village.
Yeah.
Because if you play a game where they say, oh, you're the chosen one, you got to save the world, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, when I finish this game, I'm going to save the world, and everyone's going to be like, look, that guy's great, he's a hero. But because in that game, if you don't save the universe or whatever, everybody's dead. But if you're trying to save a village or another person or something, the world still goes on without that person. So I think there's, in the back of your head, you're still thinking there's a very real possibility that this person or this village or whatever could be destroyed. And then I'm just left with that. And there's no real consequence on everybody else because that's not, that wasn't the goal. It wasn't the goal to save everybody else. It's the goal to save that one thing.
But it's not very realistic, is it though? Because the regular everyday heroes, they make huge impressions and huge changes to individuals' lives, and not of entire countries and continents and worlds. And those stories often feel more grounded, more poignant, because you actually have a direct way of seeing what you have done, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's possible that there's an inevitability to a final goal that doesn't come down as much to reach the interpersonal level. If I play a video game, my goal is to save the world. I know that eventually I'm going to do that. It's never a question. But as far as interacting with people, that's normally where you see the most amount of variance. This could go good, this could go bad. I feel like both are equally possible. And maybe that adds a little bit of the dramatic flair to the smaller level of story. Something like that.
That was a good ending, actually.
Yeah, I'm kind of
okay. I'll take it.
Out of ideas.
That was good.
And that will bring us to the conclusion of episode 42 of the Select Characters podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. And also, as always, you can find us online, and you should reach out. You should get in touch. You can send us an email, selectcharacters@gmail.com. Hop on over to our subreddit, reddit.com/r/selectcharacters. We post every episode there. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you have any ideas or suggestions for topics, we would love to hear them. We have the biggest ears I've ever seen. We're always open. Always willing to listen.
Does it sound like a compliment?
Yeah. But it means we're good listeners. That's everybody likes a good listener. We have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have a YouTube channel. We got a couple of opinion videos and reviews that we put out over the last week or so. I think you'll really like those if you like the podcast. So check that out. Thumbs up, subscribe, 5 stars on iTunes. Ryan still says that, right? That's still a thing? We still want that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it would be nice if you rated us highly, if you think we do a good job, and leave a little review so we know what you think. And just tell us what you like and what you don't like. We will read it, and we are very thankful for your help, because the more reviews and ratings we get, the higher in the ratings we rise, and the more people will join this party we've got going for ourselves here.
Yeah, tell a friend. Definitely tell a friend.
Tell an enemy.
Yeah, I think that wraps us. Tell everybody. I think that wraps us up, and have an excellent week, and we will see you next time.